this whole thing up so badly. And it
Awesome.
was
We're
just
two of a kind.
barely ready to roll out of bed this morning. And I think I'm going to blame sleep deprivation.
One should. One should always find some excuse, and sleep deprivation works as well as any other.
Yeah, I'm on COVID time. I don't know about you. Do you have that same experience where like time is just kind of like so elastic now that I'm not sleeping at the same time, I'm not waking up at the same time, and things are just like my schedule is completely thrown off.
Well, so as a writer, I don't have
You've been on COVID
days
time,
and
haven't you?
hours. I just have,
Yeah.
people go to work. They go, it's Monday to Friday. I get there at 8:30. That was the way some people used to live.
Yeah.
I don't. I wake up. I write. That's all I do. So, no, that's not a problem. But my husband's home. And
okay.
That's ridiculous.
That messes with your schedule.
It does, because he breathes. Darn him.
Stop breathing. Stop it.
What? It's so loud. It's so distracting. I hear him when my daughter is high risk. And when this happened, we pulled her home from university and we set up like in a little apartment for her so that she could sequester off until we were sure we were clear.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
And so everybody had to clear out and make sure she was safe. And so I moved into that apartment. I moved into the apartment. I'm like, you can't come anywhere near me because you breathe too loud.
Is that that must have been kind of like a cool little vacation, wasn't it?
When she came in?
When you moved into that apartment.
So well, what had happened was so we built it out of our space, a space that existed. And when I went in there and I said, okay, I'm doing my exercise here and I'm doing my writing here, and this is where I'm going to put my bed, and, you're going to breathe over there. It was nice because he used back in the day, pre-COVID, he used to travel from Monday to Friday night. So there was no noise in the house, nobody distracting me.
You were used to it being that way. Were you
quiet? So quiet. And then he was breathing. Upsetting.
We tend to do that. I understand that. Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. You were talking about, in looking at your timeline, I see your updates. And by the way, your timeline is pretty funny. I don't know if you're the same as I am, but like there's certain friends of mine who I like to see their stuff pop up in my feeds because their sense of humor is just,
because it makes me happy. Yeah. I look for them, especially on bad days.
But I do feel a little shamed because you're you like every day or maybe every other day, I don't know, but it's always something like, yeah, I did weights today, and I'm doing stretching today, or I'm doing aerobics today. What did you do for your beautiful self? And I'm like, well,
what did you do? Come on. What did you do today for your beautiful self?
One less handful of honey roasted peanuts. We're
going to take that as a win. Right? Yeah. It's a win.
You know what I had tonight for dinner was my wife she's kind of dragging me kicking and screaming out of COVIDity. Like that. I've just my eating and exercise routine has just gone to crap ever since all this started. I'm going to blame that. But she came up with this shrimp and grits dish, only replacing the grits with cauliflower. And
it was sounding so good.
it's
not
that
good
bad
for you. What's wrong with
there's no replacing grits, but so there's no butter in it, and altogether, like the whole dish was like 220 calories.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah, and so it's shrimp. It's good for you, and then there's some spice.
High in cholesterol. You got to watch that shrimp.
Oh, is it really? Man, I was doing
Sorry to,
so good.
I
I was,
don't
I
want to
was,
be the buzzkill here, but no, it's an infrequent thing. Yeah.
I was right
It's a
there. I was right there.
special occasion. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
cholesterol. But yeah, well, one of the reasons, in my background, I was a counselor
Okay.
a long time ago.
Hmm.
And some people started putting up in my feed because, um, I tend to be a little wonky, especially with medical stuff. And,
Hmm.
I was putting up data and stats and trying to convince people that they should be taking this seriously.
Hmm.
And when I did that, I got some messages back about how this was affecting people's mental health. So I thought, you know, I, I understand that. I have to fight that too.
Hmm.
I usually am out training and with search and rescue, and I'm usually traveling. I'm doing things to
Yeah.
feed my work.
Hmm.
Um, and I wasn't out and I wasn't experiencing new things. And that to me is very depressing not to be learning something. And
Hmm.
so I thought, okay, do something for you, do something for them. So part of what
Oh,
my
yeah.
posting on that is accountability. If I tell people I'm going to do something, my ethic tells me I have to
Yeah,
follow
do it.
through.
Yeah. You
So if
kind of
I
make
put up, I'm lifting weights today, it'll be 8:45. I'll be like, wine in bed, a good
you
movie.
gotta do it.
Wine,
Mhm.
thank you.
I know.
I didn't know if we were drinking, so
I wanted,
I
you
had
know
my
what?
tea.
Usually this is a first for you, Fiona, because
Aw.
I typically on my lives I drink whiskey, but you seem
But
pretty
you
classy.
thought she's
So
a
yes,
wine girl.
Chardonnay tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, babe.
So that's what I'm doing. We had Chardonnay with the shrimp and grits, and we're kind of creatures of habit. Like if it's some kind of a pasta meal or beef dish, it's always like a Pinot Grigio, or
Mm.
not a Pinot Grigio, but a Pinot Noir, and or some kind of a red wine. And then when it's a shrimp dish or a fish dish or chicken or something like that, it's Pinot Grigio. And so we're trying to expand our horizons a little bit. And my wife didn't think that she liked Chardonnay, but this bottle, I
It
think we need
worked,
to
huh?
remember. Yeah, we need to remember what it is because it's pretty
You need
tasty.
to post that. You need a link. We need to know. These
I
are
think I
things that
will.
are
I will.
important in life right now.
Yeah, I'll do a link to the wine of the evening, the wine pairing for our live tonight.
There you go.
So we'll do that. Well, I want to get to know you a little bit better. I think that it's funny. You've been writing for a good period of time. You're a USA Today bestseller, and so you've been around the block and writing. But I think that anybody who has not experienced the writing of Fiona Quinn's, uh, you should. You should read some of the words that she writes because I had such a good time um,
Aw,
narrating Cold Red and In Too Deep as
in too
well.
deep.
And I was so, it was so gratifying to, because, and I'm going to try not to do any spoilers in here, but there's a character in Too Deep
Hmm.
um,
Who's a
who,
shithead?
yeah, he was, but you know what? I still felt kind of bad for him. Like, you know what? This guy feels bad.
Men
And
do. Men so gravitate. I've gotten so many letters from men saying, he was such a good, why didn't you let him have the girl?
yeah, yeah. You can tell that he knew he screwed up, and I mean, he faced the consequences and he dealt with it. But
Mhm.
so it was good to know that we get to
He
read.
could be redeemed.
Yeah,
Some aspect of him.
yeah. Maybe that's what it is. It's like there's a little redemption in these two novels, and I want to play the trailer that you put together for Cold Red because it's really a kick-ass trailer. But
Aw.
I want to play that. But uh, also just to let you know, it was really cool to like continue the story. Or it's not a story. It's continue getting to know these characters. You can read either book in by itself, but they inform each other. So I think that's
Yes.
pretty cool. So can we watch the trailer?
Please.
All right, let's do it. If I can click the right button. That's it. That's the trailer for Cold Red. Now this one just released this week, right? It's Tuesday, or was it last week that
It
Cold?
was it was election day because who
Oh,
was busy doing anything else, right? They were
really?
just waiting for Cold Red to drop.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, there's still nothing to do until I mean, I don't know how long it's going
Yeah,
to take for us to figure out
yes,
what which
forever.
president we have. But yeah, that was a great story. I love yeah, I mean I get to read for a living, so I guess I can't
Isn't that
complain about
fun?
any stories that I read, but there are some that I just I don't know. The movies kind of play in my head as I'm reading these books, and both of them, Cold Red and Into Deep, were those kind of movies where I'm casting the characters in my head as I'm reading the book. And our hero. So if you're a fan of strong uh, strong women in these books, they're both in both books. You have strong women characters, but this woman in Cold Red is she's such a kick-ass.
She's fierce, isn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite things. So in the like the very beginning of the book, it starts with this SWAT takedown of the apartment that this woman is in, and for reasons that you'll find out later, she's letting them arrest her, but she has to keep telling herself these guys are just doing their job. They're not angry or anything like that. Just let them do their thing. And she's just really tough, and she's resisting the urge to beat the hell out of them.
Beat the she could too,
Yeah,
she's
she
like,
could.
I could take you with my bare hands. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, she was yeah, I yes, I she's the aspect of me that I wish I sometimes had to go in there
yeah.
and kick some
So,
butt.
so you're what is the attraction to you for writing these this genre of books? We've got the FBI and the CIA, and we have iniquitous in this in both of these books, and this is a private contractor, right?
Yeah,
Iniquitous.
right. So they're sort of they're mercenaries basically, but they're
Mhm.
they're the best of the best, and they have really high ethics, and they're only chosen if they have to work there, if
Mhm.
if they're going to maintain this golden reputation, right?
Right.
And so when you read the books, you always know that the good guys are sincerely good, sometimes
Mhm.
confused, but sincerely good. And you know, uh, so I have this as a varied background, and I just really like to use all of it. So the psychology and so Cold Red, for example, I was out training in the woods in the winter.
Mhm.
And there was this crazy storm. It was like the wind was blowing 80 miles an hour and the trees were like toppling down around us. And we were
Oh
supposed
no.
to be out there in formation with rifles searching for someone who didn't want to be found. And
Wow.
it was, I was like, you know what? My eyes are dry. I'm done.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah, there's certain parts of this book that you can't you know that you've been in this situation because of the specific things that bother you about being in cold that cold.
that cold, that windy, that miserable, and what would you do about it? But yeah, on that day, there was a girl. Her name is Anna, who is
Mhm.
uh, who um, I named the character after, and
So
she
this character is named after this girl that you actually
after
knew.
this girl named
Wow,
Anna, and
interesting.
Anna is fabulous.
Mhm.
She's like a squirrel. She lives in the woods. She's just one with nature.
Wow.
She's
Mhm.
fabulous. So, like when we were looking for her, you'd have to look in the trees. You'd have to look in the great. If you
What is the
found a
story with
crazy
this?
place, that's where she'd go. But so we were tracking her. We were on manhunting, where so you're following it. You're trying to find the tracks, and you're trying to
Mhm.
follow them. And like these men who were out there going after them, were tracking them.
Mhm.
And there's a dog named Bella, and there was a dog named Bella.
Really? Wow. This
So,
is cool.
so Anna took us out, and she walked over a swamp, and she got out of that perfectly clean. We went into the swamp. So we
Oh,
fell
that must be
into the swamp
miserable. Yeah.
in this weather, and I was like,
Mhm.
this is a story.
Yeah.
This is
Oh, yeah.
And so it all came out of being really
So what is your
sucking wet.
background that you find yourself in these situations? Were you in the military or
No, I just
you
have a habit of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Just
wow. You volunteer for this though.
I volunteer for the search and rescue because I have I have background. I actually joined because of my psychology background, and I worked in
Mhm.
emergency, and I thought emergency intervention for the court systems. So I thought that a
Mm.
lot of the people we search for are despondent, and that if I was out on a search for a despondent person, that I might be able to be helpful
Interesting.
in talking them through that and getting them to safety.
Mhm.
Because we're not authorities. We can't go out there and tackle them. we're,
Right.
we need to be
Yeah.
we're there to help.
Mhm.
But that was what I had hoped to be able to do.
Well, that makes you tough. You're yeah, I mean that's a job that definitely keeps you in shape.
Yeah. Well, that's a yeah volunteer work, and then but I started back when I was in the this was back in my last life. When I was younger, and I was
Mhm.
doing the emergency stuff. It was actually a pretty dangerous thing to do to go in and
Mhm.
because I did home visits with people who were um,
Hmm.
in some pretty serious conditions, and so I started martial arts. I'm a second degree black belt, and
Yeah.
doing some other stuff like that, and I enjoy it. I
Mhm.
really enjoy throwing people on the ground.
Beating people up and
It's fun. Yeah,
yeah.
it's fun. My
Wow.
husband, my whole family did it together. My daughters can,
Mhm.
mm, they're dangerous girls, but
Yeah. Well, that's
the
good. Yeah.
yeah, so it's all fun.
What is your discipline? Is it karate,
Taekwondo,
taekwondo,
yeah,
taekwondo?
taekwondo.
Okay.
Though I really wanted Krav Maga, but
Yeah.
we
Okay.
just don't have a good studio where I live. So
Oh
some of them,
yeah. Big cities have Krav Maga. I think Krav Maga is a very popular well because of the way because of
because it's
what it
street.
is. Yeah,
It's
because
street.
yeah,
Yeah,
it works. It's quick. You can you can learn this and use it
immediately.
fairly
Yeah.
quickly. So that's yeah, that really is interesting. I when I was a kid, I took kung fu uh,
Mhm.
for I don't know a few years, and I enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. And I never had uh, there was never a goal in mind. It's just that my stepdad was kung fu for the longest time. Big fan of Bruce Lee's and the
As well, he
Dao
should be.
Budo. Oh yeah, Bruce Lee. He was like a superhuman. But so I took it and I enjoyed it and learned and learned and learned. And one time I found myself in a fight in a parking lot, and
How'd it go?
this was
Bad, huh?
this was years later. It's not like I had, continued to practice or anything, but it all came back just like that. It was just
Okay.
like second nature.
Yeah,
Um,
because you threw that punch 10,000 times. Your muscle memory knows exactly what to do, right? You just
yeah.
needed your to get out of your head by dumping some adrenaline.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. So
Yeah,
you have to do a lot of research for these books that you write.
I love it. I love the
Yeah.
research. The research is so much fun. I
Yeah.
do. Was I homeschooled my four kids, and so just because I wanted a reason to sit around and read books and study stuff.
Yeah.
And and so the plan had always been when they grew up that I would go to writing. I'd always wanted to be a writer. That was
hmm
always my eventual plan. But it takes some mature from me. Some
hmm
people don't need this, but I needed some life experience and some maturity and some stuff under my belt.
Yeah, it's difficult to write if you don't have any kind of if you don't have that life experience to inform what you're writing. It's yeah, I can't imagine that it would be very easy to to create these stories with depth and texture.
I like depth and texture. I
Yeah.
do. I like to read that, and I like to write kinds
Yeah.
of things I like to read. Like I like to learn things every time I read. I want to be
Mhm.
entertained. I don't
Yeah.
want it to be like I am now going to inform you. But if I
Right.
pick stuff up along the
Mhm.
way and then it's accurate, so when I go to a cocktail party, I can say, "Hey, did
Oh,
you
yeah,
know?"
yeah, yeah. I liked, Ken Follett for that reason.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
books, when learning about how they created these, these churches and chapels and the dangers and all of those things. It really was fascinating, it kind of gave me this feeling of just how much intelligence needed to be at hand just living back then. And to me, like Ken Follett was so good at describing these things. You could feel,
You feel
uh,
like you could go out and do it.
yeah, yeah, or at least appreciate it.
I'm gonna
But
try.
yeah, I like that. I liked, Michael Crichton wrote,
Mhm.
the way that he wrote. I
All of it,
I enjoyed.
everything Michael Crichton wrote. I ate it with a spoon. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It was just fascinating. But the way that he described it, I don't remember the name of the book. It was the time travel book. Uh,
Sphere.
no, it was shoot. I can't remember the name of the book. They made a movie out of the
Okay.
book. But the fascinating thing to me about Michael Crichton is that he's a scientist, or he was a scientist, and informed all of his books with with the knowledge that he explained how theoretically this was possible.
Mhm.
The time travel in terms of he would always give you a little background on, well, we've physicists have discovered that there is a potential possibility to slot yourself into a parallel universe, and you can find yourself, you if theoretically you could place yourself somewhere in time to go somewhere
So
in
where would you
time.
go under
Where
such
would I go?
sick?
Well, so now we're talking about that. His story took place in the 14th century, but that was so brutal that I don't
No, I would
know.
never go back there. That what a horrible, horrible
Yeah,
time.
and the Black Plague, and
And dung houses and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it was
just
terrible.
all of it.
But I think
Burning
that
women. Let's not burn women.
yeah, yeah, not
I
not a
don't think I
good
want to go there.
not a good place for poor people or women. It was very brutal. What did they? What is that? Nasty, brutish, and short. Uh, uh,
Which one? They're all.
no, who's the guy that he wrote that life back then was nasty, brutish, and short. I can't remember his name. The guy that wrote a Christmas. Um,
Dickens?
Dickens,
Christmas
yeah,
Carol?
Charles Dickens, right? I think he was the one who said, life then was nasty, brutish, and short. But I think that I love history. So my books that I read they are very dry, and they're history. And I usually only have a chance to read for pleasure. Like I read, 8 hours a day, but at night when I go to bed, I'll read one of my favorite history books, and most of my focus has been lately on um, the Revolutionary time. So I'm reading, and I'm also one of those people who has 4 or 5 books going at the same time. So I'm reading George Washington's biography, uh, Benjamin Franklin's biography. I just finished Benedict Arnold, and I'm starting a George Mason. Um, and so all that period of time is really fascinating to me. The beginnings of the United States and the challenges that they went through. So that's fascinating to me. The pre-revolutionary times. Um, and then back to the days of Cato and uh, Julius Caesar and
Yeah.
those times I think would be fascinating as well.
I have I have a degree in history. I have a bunch of degrees. I really
Mm,
like to study shit.
mhm.
So, and one of the really fun things I did was I took a semester where we worked backwards in history, but we did it in situ. So we started in London and we worked our way back in time
Oh,
through
that must
down to
be so
Egypt, over to
cool.
Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So we had our professor and an art
Mhm.
history professor with us, and they walked us through the cathedrals and they explained all, everything in it. So it went from
Wow.
modern backwards. And so Though I would have done it the other way. I would have gone from,
Go from
I
there
would have
forward.
built,
Yeah. Yeah.
built understanding instead of pulled off layers of understanding. But
Yeah.
to each their own in their way of thinking about
Yeah,
practice.
I think I would have preferred going back to the beginning and then moving forward
Moving
as
forward,
well. Yeah.
when I was educating my kids, one of the things I did was, first of all, I set aside some money so that they could go get therapy for me experimenting on them. But my
Yeah.
experiment was that, so we started at the beginning of history. We started with, the cave times, and we built when then they learned this, and then this became, and this. So we learned history and music and literature and math and science, all from the perspective of building.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, they'll say, I don't know anything about that. I'm like, picture this. And they go,
Mhm.
oh, and I'm like, now tell me. And they're like, oh, well, now we know everything. It's just like, they have,
Wow.
you just need to give them a, a marker of something that will help them get into that right place. And then they can tell you everything about it. So it's very fun. It's very
Hmm.
cool.
That,
Hey, can I
yeah.
tell you something?
Yeah.
I was, I was talking with my husband about you the other day. And
I
I
love
was
to breathe.
saying that your job gives you such an unfair advantage with women.
Really?
Yes. I, the thing is, as I'm listening to you read, and I
Mhm.
will tell you a secret. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I'll put on one of your put on one of my audiobooks, and
Oh,
I
wow.
love
Okay.
your voice. Your voice is very
Oh,
soothing.
thank you. I appreciate that.
It makes me feel like I'm safe, and so I can go to sleep and not nightmare about COVID.
Oh, I liked it. Maybe I should make some of those ADSR.
Yes,
Uh,
whisper. You should.
yeah. Just kind of whisper it. Everything's gonna be okay.
Let me
Yeah.
read you this story. I
I'm
love
gonna.
this story by Fiona Quinn because she's action adventure and you'll wake
Yeah.
up. But,
Think about taking an adventure and being really cold, but then getting warm.
okay, and now there's a fire, but you don't have any clothes on. So here's why you have an unfair advantage. All right, first of all, you're reading works, and I'm imagining a lot of female works where women are writing the things that men will say to male characters will say to female characters to
Mhm.
persuade them.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
all right, so you have muscle memory. We were talking about that a minute ago. You have
Mhm.
muscle memory. Your tongue and your lips, your brain has this muscle memory for what works. Not
Wow.
not just
Yeah.
word choice,
Mhm.
but you've also been given beats. Beats in writing is when they don't say he said, she said. It says he crossed his arms, he put
Mhm.
his hand, he stroked his chin. That's a beat, right? So
Yeah.
the beats that the
Mm.
women would gravitate towards. So you know what to do
Wow.
with your hands. You know
Mm.
what words to say with your mouth. Not only that, but you practice that boyfriend tone, that
Hmm.
oh, baby, I can't even do it. That, oh, I feel so warm and loving towards you. And I was
Yeah.
like, he has got to be the best salesman in my husband is in sales. And so, he'll come in and he'll sell me things, but he's a
Mhm.
hard salesman.
Mhm.
So it's like, I know it's coming. And I'm just like, no, no.
Yeah.
But you, you
Wow.
could just employ the things that you
Mhm.
learn in your work, the tone of
Yeah.
voice, the movement of your body, the choice of words, and you could have anything you wanted. Anything.
I really need to use this.
It's a
You're like
superpower.
yeah, you're like opening up my horizons here.
Consciousness. Why didn't I realize that
Why am
he
I
was
reading
typing
books
in the
for a
background
living?
going,
I should be in politics. No, actually, that would be the worst thing for me
wouldn't
to
it
be
be
in politics.
horrible?
Yeah.
No, let's
I
not
think
do
it
that.
what is the I don't remember who said it. I don't remember who said who said this about politics, but they said, as ruthless and conniving and calculating as you need to be successful in politics, it's no wonder that good people shy away from being in politics.
They do.
It's like you're really looking at the people who are willing to do pretty much anything to
Who are
to achieve power.
still, right? They're
Mhm.
just a very, well, so this is how I frame it for myself.
Mhm.
Um, we are, as a population, very, very balanced. When you look at how things are divided up, 1% of us is a psychopath
Mm,
in
okay.
our population, and
Hmm.
1% is the anti-psychopath. So they're the people who can do the things a psychopath does, but with ethic. So
Oh,
you're
okay.
talking about people like our SWAT teams and our Delta and my FBI guy, the
Okay,
people.
yeah, yeah. People who are capable of violence,
They are
but in the
capable
service
of
of something
violence of
noble.
action, and
Mhm,
they understand the requirement within the society to have it. And
mhm,
it balances out 1% to 1%, the
hmm,
psychopaths and the anti psychopaths. And we also have that in
hmm,
terms of the artists and the scientists. We have it
mhm,
in terms of the the structure of a conservative brain versus the structure of a liberal brain. We have it in terms
mhm,
of, so when you look at all these different dimensions, we have people who have the propensity to do certain jobs. So if
mhm.
everybody ended up being a writer, well, you can't.
There'd just be a lot of writers. There'd be a lot of writers and not very many
Right.
leaders. Yeah.
And it takes a certain it takes a different kind of person to be a sales rep, and it takes a different kind of person, right?
Mhm,
So we're born, when we have societies, and they just happen to come about that, there's a certain group of people who feel the need to lead, and
mhm,
that leadership comes with, a certain level of sang-froid, right? That you
mhm.
need to
Yeah.
be steely and difficult, and make choices that
Mhm,
aren't always in line with your own ethic, but it's so that you can get the bigger picture. I mean, all of that
mhm,
kind of chess playing and broad
mhm.
scope, and that's
Yeah.
yeah, it's unique, and I'm glad it's not me. I
Yeah,
like
you
it.
know, I think you're right. It is too easy to become cynical about, politicians. I mean, it's like what I just said is a very cynical way to look at it. It's probably just because
We're in
I
a
mean,
cynical time. It's okay.
we've all been going through this point, and I think a lot of people are very, very fatigued, and they're just saying, "God, can't we just all get along?" But,
Yes, please.
and that is the cynical way to look at it, but I think that you're right. You do have to so while I might use the word ruthless to describe politicians, somebody else who is in a more philosophical frame of mind might say indomitable. You if you are, you need to have an indomitable spirit in order to push through the resistance to do
Mhm.
what you know is right. And
Well,
you,
right, what you feel is correct, and then
yeah,
it's nice that we have the opposite side. These people feel they're correct. These people
mhm,
feel they're correct. But so when you put them together,
mhm.
and you have these
It's the
two
right
different
counterbalance.
divergent thought processes, and if they can communicate
Mhm,
um, openly and kindly and with, you know good
mhm.
intention.
Yeah.
There are other things to that mix, but
Right, right.
uh, that that you can come to, not you're right or they're right, but there is a middle ground,
Mhm.
which is which might have elements of things that you did not consider, right? If
Right.
I only listen to myself, I'd
Mhm.
always be right. But I have my husband who
Mhm.
informs me,
Yeah, I think
who
that's
gives
good.
me another perspective, and perspective
Mhm.
helps you grow. And growth is why we're here, right? We're here to
Mhm.
grow and to be good people and kind.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good use for spouses. I mean, I think we provide a lot of, checks and balances for each
And
other in certain things.
reflection, and did you
Yeah.
happen to notice, and
Mhm. Yeah, my
perhaps
wife
did
does
you
that for me.
consider.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many times when I come in, when I don't, doesn't really matter what I'm talking about, whether it's a disagreement with somebody or it's a political opinion or an ideology or something, like whatever it is. Sometimes she can just stop me in the middle of what I'm saying with a simple question that makes me say, "Oh, I no, I didn't think about that." So
There's a perspective.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But we don't want, right. We don't want everybody to be the same, and we don't want everybody to have the same thoughts. And
Mhm.
it's okay to be, it's okay. it's not just okay. It's beneficial for us
Right.
to not be. Um, Otherwise, we'd all be doing exactly the same thing, and we'd be robotons. We wouldn't
Yeah,
be
that's true.
humans on a growth spectrum. We want to be
Hmm.
moving
Yeah,
towards
and
our
I
better.
really, I mean, I don't enjoy talking to people with whom I agree all the time because that gets boring. I mean,
Okay,
if you're
so
ending your
we're
sentence,
agreeing here. Are you bored? Are you
yeah, no,
bored
I'm
already?
actually I'm doing
Should I
pretty good. I don't know
spice
how many
things up?
books I don't know how many audiobooks we're selling at this moment in time, but I'm really enjoying the conversation. I think that it's it's fascinating to talk to you, and I enjoy I enjoy like these exchanges, you know, to talk about the things that drive us. And it is kind of fascinating to to think that you're right. We with this yin and yang to like the psychotic and the antipsychotic and the emoter and the logos and I think if we can value those those different aspects of the people that we interact with, it'd be nice. It seems like right now we don't have much of that. We have tribalism and
We
people.
have we have Facebook algorithms. So
Yes, fascinating. Did you see the in Netflix? There's a a program called The Social Dilemma. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
I think would really find that fascinating because it's there are a lot of people who have worked for Google and
Mhm.
Twitter and Instagram and Facebook who are coming out
Mhm.
raising the alarm, saying this
There's
is
no
a
ethicists on their in
Mhm,
their companies. So that part of
yeah,
the problems is that here we have so in the brain, we
mhm,
have time periods, right? So in the time period of great creation, which happens like till you're mid-aged, right? So
mhm,
say 45, 50. You have a time of great creation where you're expansive and you're trying new things. When
mhm,
you get older than that, you have a brain that's more organizational. So you can go back
mhm,
and look at these ideas and say they're good for this reason, they're bad for that reason, right? So
mhm,
you get these companies that have all of these really young people who have all these great ideas and they're all expansive. Remember, we were talking about
mhm,
the you need the balance, right?
mhm,
You have all of these bright, expansive brains, and we love that.
mhm,
What we don't love is that they're not, they don't have the perspective of this is a brand new world, and we have to be
mhm,
very careful um, how we introduce that brand new world. And yes, it's
mhm,
cool and it's very exciting. And look what we're doing right now. I mean,
mhm.
15
Yeah.
years ago, this was and not even a thought process, right? But without ethicists or people coming in
Mhm.
older people
Yeah.
who come in and say, let's do the organizational pieces to this.
Mhm,
Let's figure out when we use this algorithm,
mhm,
what is the societal impact? Because
mhm.
there's going to be one, right?
Yeah.
And so I was exploring this a little bit in I have a series, an FBI series, and each of the books. Well, this was one of them, and the Cold
Mhm,
Red was one of them. But the one prior to this in that series is called Open
mhm,
Secret, and the one after it is called Even Odds,
mm.
and they're all oxymoron titles, and no one figures
Mm.
that out. But it makes me happy.
Huh.
So
Okay.
the but in those books, I'm
Mhm,
talking about how Russia understands all of this, and they
mhm,
understand what's happening, and they're weaponizing it. And
mhm,
so I started explaining some of this in the most rudimentary way, and I got so many letters saying this was so frightening to me. I
mm,
thank God this isn't happening. It's like, wait, this was happening 10 years ago. We are so past this.
mhm,
We're in some, because we haven't learned in Russia, and I've traveled to Russia. I really, when it was the USSR, and
mm,
Czechoslovakia and East Berlin, when all was all, kind of, and I love it there. I love the
Hmm.
people. I love the culture. I found that the psychology was really interesting. And
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
been living with propaganda in a different way than we have. And so
Hmm.
their propaganda, they can kind of see through it.
Hmm.
We haven't advanced through those lessons yet. We are in the
Hmm.
process of figuring out how to advance through the lessons of what is propaganda and how is it manipulating me.
Yeah.
We have to admit that we are being manipulated. I'm being manipulated. You
Hmm.
know, um, uh, when I put on this sweater this morning, I was manipulating my mind because I was a little low energy. So,
Hmm.
red stimulates the mind. I put that on, and when I need
Hmm.
some creativity, I go out and look at green. So, when we
Yeah.
do even subtle things, it has a psychological effect, and
Yeah.
we need we need to understand that. People really need to get clear really fast because
Yeah.
things can go downhill very fast,
Do you
badly.
ever find yourself outsmarting yourself, trying to think to yourself, like trying to? So you mentioned that okay, I'm feeling low energy this morning. I'm going to go ahead and put on a red sweater. Do you
Mhm.
find yourself catching on to your own tricks, saying, "Ah, that's not going to work this time"?
What I'll do is sometimes I'll go, even if this is a placebo, I'm cool with it.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with
it's not going to
it.
hurt anything, right? Yeah.
Um, and my expectation isn't like I'm going to put on the red and all of a sudden I'm going to do a marathon. It's just
Yeah.
it's a subtle thing. If
Yeah.
when For writing, if I get to a place where I'm stuck, a lot
Hmm.
of writers will tell you that there are two really good things to do.
Hmm.
One is to get in the bath or shower.
Hmm.
And I've never read a study of why that works, but you talk across the writers and they'll tell you, yeah, I
Interesting.
took a bath and I came up with this. This is the shower, the
Hmm.
great ideas of the shower, right?
Really?
And
You
I
know what?
think
That
it might
happened
have
for
something to
me.
do with brain stimulation and heat with the heat. I don't know.
This is
I'll have
weird. I'm gonna tell you a secret thing that I've never told anybody before. Best ideas I've ever come up with
yeah.
while I'm picking up dog poop. So I like before I mow the lawn, every, like a couple of times a week I go out, I have to police the yard. Dogs are, we think we own dogs. No, they own us. I mean, we feed them, we pick up after their poop. I mean, we let them in when they want in, we let them out when they want out,
Yeah.
and but anyway, so I don't know what it is, but like when I'm going
It's a
through this like
walking meditation.
yeah, this little routine of mine where I'm just like all I have is like one little job. It's like find these little bombs in the yard.
Mhm.
I think of these great ideas. Like I'll think of great rhymes for rap and all sorts of different weird things and like next level things that I'm trying to work on. Like I want to do um, yeah, probably the idea about talking to authors and fellow narrators in lives probably came while I was just doing this most routine thing. But
Right, but you're taking out the noise, right? You're like,
mhm,
I have to focus on finding the poop.
mhm,
It's
yeah,
a very focused. I mean, it's
yeah,
actually wonderful.
mhm,
You're very focused. And here's the other piece to that is you're looking at grass and grass is green. And we
mhm.
know that just 5 minutes of the color green stimulates creativity in the mind.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting.
So here you are, you're outside, you are focused, so I don't have to think about, I paying the bills and running that and what
Mhm.
I'm going to get at the grocery store. You're like, my job right now is
Just this
to
one
look
thing.
at the green
Hmm.
and find the outlier, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're having a thought, what are you doing? You've got all of this mass, you've got all
Hmm.
of those thoughts in your head, you've got billions of things going on in your head. What you're looking for is the outlier, the thing that catches you like a hook,
Hmm.
right? And so it's a metaphor. I'm
That's
going
yeah,
with that.
that's
That's what
fascinating.
I'm
I
going
think
to say.
I think you're right though. I mean that rings true to me. I like that, and I think about those things, because the same you have your challenge is to continually come up with some new idea
Mm.
and come up with the next plot point. What happens as a result of this and things like that. That's very difficult. And that's why I really admire good writers. Is like number one, how do you come up with the ideas that you come up with? And number two, how do you do it so consistently? My challenge is uh, to be as efficient as I can as I'm reading, because I have deadlines that I have to meet when I'm reading these books. I have to be creative and act these scenes out, but at the same time, I have to try to make as few mistakes as I can,
I
or
was to
at
say
least
my
be
favorite is
efficient.
when you yell from a distance. I don't know what you're doing with your voice.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
yelling from a distance.
I think if I was to do a maybe I should like do
I
that
want to see a
sometimes, just like
video of
record
you doing
myself.
this. Are you like
Yeah.
doing with you? Are you going with your
Oh
body and
yeah,
saying,
definitely.
"Grr"?
Yeah, definitely. When I'm talking, I'm using my hands and I'm like gesturing. Every now and then I'll knock the microphone. I have to like redo it, because I hit the microphone or something. But yeah, typically if somebody, if she's calling in from the other room, then I'll go, I'll be there in a minute, and I have to like cover my mouth so that
Yes,
the
it
sound
sounds
doesn't
like it. You can hear
bounce
it.
off
It
the
sounds like it's
backyard.
happening. The
Yeah, and then scream, like if you yell at somebody, you can't really yell into the microphone because you'll distort the microphone and it'll react differently, it won't sound natural. So you have to kind of back off and like yell, but in a like a more subdued way.
like
So
you yell like I do in the grocery store with my kids. You
yeah,
kids.
stop that. I'm telling you right now.
So, what about so here's a horror. Here's a horror from a writer's standpoint.
Mm.
He's reading along, he gets to a passage, and he's just like, these aren't even words that a human says in a sentence. And how do I say
Oh,
that to make it sound
oh, like
possible?
it. Well, so that is the challenge. That is the real challenge, and I will, I will never speak badly or ill of any author, because I feel
Especially
like,
me because I'm right here,
especially
right
you,
here.
not to your face at least. No, but I'll never speak ill of an author, because to me, these people are doing something that I can't do. They're pouring their soul into these books, and that's like,
Yes, we have to take, this right here. It looks
mhm,
like tea, but it's actually extra soul because I poured it into the
it's
book.
extra soul. Yeah.
It's extra soul. You can get it on sale this week on Amazon.
Oh, really? Wow. You know what? I think you're on to something. What you need to do is just like cap up, take your mug and then like film yourself using that mug and drinking out of it. And then seal it up and sell it and say, this is a little bit of my soul for you,
Just a little soul.
for, yeah,
So I
for
completely
aspiring
interrupted
writers.
you. You were telling me that you're not going to speak bad of authors,
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah. No. And I appreciate you keeping me on tack, because I do tend to kind of wander, but, so the thing is that, uh, oftentimes, so some writers are very easy to read. Like like when I'm reading through yours, it all feels kind of natural to me,
thank
and the words are, I don't know. I mean, it's easier for me to fall into the characters, to fall into the conversations and the narration, and they move along fairly easily. But there are others, and this is not to say that the others who are difficult for me to read are necessarily, uh, not as skilled or
you. They might be for
competent.
reading with the eyes instead of.
Well, I think that everybody has their own different, their own style of talking and
Mhm.
communicating and things like that. And so if I'm reading something that isn't my natural cadence and word structures and things like that, is difficult for me. And so my challenge is to take these words that I'm saying, well, I wouldn't talk like that, but I need to figure out, okay, how do
How
I
they
make
do it.
that sound natural and like what they would say.
Well,
And
you remember a couple of passages. There was one scene she was out in the woods and they were kind of having this like little riff back and forth about he was comparing her to a woman who he used to be in love with. And he was like saying, just odd things like, he didn't know her. So they were
Mhm.
out in the woods and he was like, well, you don't eat the same things. And she's like a holly tree. You're like a holly tree.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
just this bizarre stuff. But in my mind, pattern. There was a pattern to the way it was going back and forth. And
Mhm.
it was showing that they had started to get, like you were
This
saying, like
chemistry.
lined up.
Mhm.
And you nailed it. Oh my God, you
Oh,
nailed it.
that's
And I was
good.
just like,
Thank you. That's
that's
nice. Well, yeah, so and
awesome.
that is the thing. It is pretty cool. Like once when I feel like I'm into when I feel like I'm into it and we're on the same track, then I can kind of see where you're going and see how like this is the personality makeup of these two different characters. And that was a really cool thing about Cold Red is that and I'll try not to give away anything out of the book, but it starts
Run
out
away.
so this woman Anna is she's just such a badass, and she's so like she's in operation mode in the beginning of this book. Well, pretty much all the way through. I mean, she's pretty serious, right? I mean,
Mhm.
she is really uh, a
Professional.
real a real tough character. She's very mentally tough, right?
Yeah.
And so all the way through her mental condition is very disciplined and tough, and she's able to persevere through. She was a ranger, right?
Hmm.
A former ranger,
Right. She's with
and
AWG. With the ACE,
yeah, asymmetrical warfare.
Astronomical Warfare Group. Hmm.
Yeah, and but her background is that she was one of the
Ranger.
first
One of the first female
rangers.
rangers. Hmm.
Yeah, she was a what is it? Not a founding ranger, but anyway, one of the first female rangers,
Yeah.
and so it's very mentally tough, and it's very mission focused. But at a
Hmm.
certain point in time, you start to see that number one, there is chemistry between them. There's some mutual respect between them early on, um, and she begins to understand that this guy's pretty tough. I mean, he has suffered an injury, but he's still tough and he's still hanging, and he's doing pretty good. But they develop this relationship, and it really goes all the way through the story to the to the end when they find this that they belong together.
Hmm.
They're good together. Um, but it was really cool to like go through that and like it's like feel it thawing, between the two of them to where to the point where this mutual respect turns into affection, turns into real uh,
Yeah, something a little
desire.
deeper, a little more profound, right? A little more
Yeah, it was
stable,
really
right?
nice. Hmm. And I really enjoyed that. It's cool. I mean, it's cool to go through that little journey um, with
Yeah, well, everything else, well, the world is imploding. But yeah,
Mhm.
no, it's good. It's good. Yeah, they had to overcome themselves. And yeah, one of the parts I really liked about her was she was so mission forward, and at one point she started to collapse.
Mm.
Um, and this is out. We were talking about the swamp, falling in the swamp. When I fell in the swamp,
Mhm.
I walked out of the swamp. It was just one of those things. But
Yeah.
she walked out of the swamp, things got really bad, and her capacity, just on a
Mhm.
physical level, was draining away. And when she had been kind of the two
Yeah,
carrying
you're
him
right.
along up to
You're
that
right.
point, and at that point, when she started to falter, he was like, "Man up,
Yeah, he was able to
it's on
pick
me."
up and take over. And yeah, that was a funny part in there because at a certain point he was naked. And
Running through the snow to the blizzard.
yeah, they were freezing, and he was naked, and she was, I won't go into too much detail, but she sees him and he goes, "Hey, shrinkage, don't judge me."
No judgment.
Yeah, I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty funny because that's the first thing I would think of. I mean, I could be like, fighting off a bear, but if somebody saw me naked and I was cold, I go, "Hey, it's not always like this.
Things improve. Just heat me
It
up
gets
a little.
better." But you caught me at a bad moment. I'll be right with you. But that was a pretty cool book. So we should actually talk about the book and tell people where to find it. So it's so this these both of these books that I've done for you were through Tantor,
Right.
and I'm so glad that they put us together. And the So you can find them on the Tantor website. You can also find them on Audible as well. You've got In Too Deep, which is the first book, and then Cold Red, which is the second. Although, are there books before this in the series?
So this is the way I wrote this, because there are different readers. Psychology. The different readers like different things. Some people like a standalone book. So the books are all written so you can read them as standalones, and
Mm-hmm.
you should be fine. Um, the You'll get more out of it if you read in a different way. So the books In Too Deep was part of Strike Force, which is a 3-book series. There are more books planned, but right now it's 3-book
Mm-hmm.
series. Um, the Cold Red is the second book in the FBI series. So
Okay.
that's one way to read them as a standalone, or you can read them as a series. But the third way, the best way to read
Okay.
them, is that I have the world of Iniquus. And in that world, there are 20 books. Um,
Oh wow.
and and each series has a different focus. So, for example, I have Uncommon Enemies, which is all the women are PhDs. Most
Mhm.
of them work with DARPA, so they're all military scientists. Women, very so. Anna's strength was from her military background. These women's strengths are intellectual.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay.
and Strike Force is uh, men of men on Strike Force, which is one of the
Mhm.
forces in at Iniquus. Panther Force is another force. I'm writing right now in Cerberus Tactical, which is tactical canines, and
Hmm.
I have particular love for that.
Yeah.
Working with tactical canines, and so there are 20 books, but there are 6 different series, and each series has like the, a different flavor. So you won't get bored. It's not the same thing.
Mhm.
It's not the same thing. This was
Yeah.
FBI. Cold Red is FBI, and
Mhm.
they are doing FBI stuff, but
It's
they have it in
fascinating.
it
It's
this time.
it's almost as if your whole life has been preparing to write these stories. I mean, you tell me about these stories of yours, and then I think about these
A
things
lot of them
that
are
you
true.
do. Yeah, yeah. A lot of these things that you tell me about are they're informed by your real world experiences, and
By design. So when I went to
mhm,
school, I didn't get a English, but I have a bunch of degrees, and I have a bunch of, I trained in weapons, I trained in fighting, I traveled the world. The whole idea was I wanted a basket full of nutritious,
yeah.
delicious, wonderful things to write with, and yeah, yeah. So that's
So this was all by design. I mean, you never felt like, gosh, this is such a dichotomy. Here I am, this intellectual, and then on the other hand, I'm in this nitty-gritty world of military and tactical and extreme violence when
all by
called
design,
for.
except that I'm too much of a wuss. I just, gosh, our military, I am
Mhm.
a huge fan because they have courage that I can only write on paper. Um, I can write about it, and I can do things. I mean, I can do things. I train to do things, but I
Mhm.
can't do what they do. I'm just not that person.
Well, you
And
might
it
find
takes
yourself in yeah. If you found yourself in the situation, you might
well,
find that you rise to the task. But
sure.
there are
I
people
feel,
who
I'll
actually
give you
have
an
to.
example. In one of my books, it's called Relic. One of the women was kidnapped.
Mhm.
Um, and as part of her background when she was young. And that happened to me. I was in Egypt and I was kidnapped by my cabbie, and on the way to the pyramids. Who would
Wow.
think?
Yeah.
And I had no weapon and no skill. All I had was my brain, and I had to think my way through getting
Mhm.
myself to safety, because no one would have been able to find me. And so, you know, I was telling you at the beginning, I always seem to get myself in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I've been attacked at least 5 times in my life out on the streets, and you rise to the occasion. But
Yeah, you
that's
do. You have to. Yeah, you don't know if you can rise to the occasion until you put it
sometimes you
in that
can't,
situation.
you
Yeah.
can't even know that, right? So even if
Mhm.
I was Anna, I wouldn't know if I could rise to the occasion, because sometimes the brain does weird little blips.
Yeah.
But I do know that rising to the occasion is a very different skill set than putting your name on the line, going
Mhm.
through the training, and knowing that you're going to be going out there and people with actual bullets
Mhm.
will be shooting at you every day.
Mhm.
The oopsie, I walked into the wrong situation means I'm not living my
You're right.
life
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
by
Purposefully putting
choice
it,
that
yeah,
way.
purposefully putting yourself in that situation in harm's way, especially when you're talking about the people who find themselves in special forces and these other units that there really is there's a mission which will entail danger. Um, I think if you find yourself in the military, you may or may not be in a situation where you're in danger. But
But the possibility is much stronger
mhm,
than if you were writing at home.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think it's important to recognize that. I think it's a valuable thing to know.
About
To
yourself, right? Knowing yourself and knowing, you know, where you can best serve, right?
Mhm,
So we were talking about at the beginning, my Facebook, am I putting up what I do? So
mhm,
I need to be able to go out in the woods and carry a backpack and walk someone, run, and you do these things. So I train to be prepared, right? But
yeah.
if I put that up,
Mhm,
my doing that can show other people that they can think about their own lives and how they
yeah.
can, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That kind of fell through, but
Yeah, no,
there's
I
there was
understand what you're saying.
there was a metaphor in there somewhere.
Well, I think that it is important for all of us to be prepared. I mean, in this Corona, this virus
Are
that
you
popped up out of
exercising? Because
nowhere.
exercise is statistically showing to make a difference, but you have to
Yeah,
do it for at least 3 months.
no, you're right. I really have. My wheels have just fallen off when my wife and I met, and I think that's so that
All right,
the issue
how
is
long ago? Give me a perspective. How long ago?
okay.
How
So
far have you fallen down the rabbit hole?
we met in 2015.
Hmm.
We moved in. We bought our house together in 2017. We got married last year on August 3rd,
Oh,
2019, right?
congratulations!
Oh,
That sounds
thank you. Yeah,
lovely.
so but here's the danger of all that.
Oh dear.
So when my wife and I met, I was in the best shape of my life. I was running.
Why? Tell me why. Because you were looking for the woman who you
Well,
needed to be attractive
I
for.
guess. I mean, the thing is, I had been. I mean, I was dating a little bit, and I had at that point in time, I just said, you know what? All I want is maybe somebody that I can hang out with, go to plays, go see music, go on hikes with, things like that. That's all I need. I just need somebody to, I'm
Be
just
a
gonna,
companion. Hmm.
yeah, I just want a companion. And I was really getting into getting in shape. It was about when I turned 50. I was right around 50.
So you're
And then
55, right? So we're the
yeah,
same age.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
55 now, yeah. So at 50, and you probably can relate to this. When I was 50, I started to get into shape, and after about 8 months, I
It
I I,
hurt.
be, I began to realize that I don't know how strong I can get because I thought like I was in better shape at 50 than I was when I was playing football when I was in high school.
Hmm.
And I was running 6 minute miles.
Awesome.
I was running in Tough Mudders.
Oh,
I was
Tough Mudders are so fun. Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
yeah, it
they're
was pretty
so
cool.
fun.
I could squat more at the age of 50 than I could when I was 17. And so I really was feeling this. I don't know how strong I can get, but I'm going to keep trying. I was doing like we did
Ah.
when I met my wife, we ran like one of the first things we did together was it was called Master the Met, and it was a 40-story building where you climb up the stairs, and we did it for like the lung association. And if you've never done that before, that is yeah, it's a fun challenge. Like at the end, your legs feel like they're about this big, and they're just like you can't even move, and you're like you can't breathe without coughing, and I mean it really taxes you. And then of course you've got like the firefighters climbing up in their gear and stuff,
You're making you feel,
shaming you. Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, so I was in great shape. My wife was in great shape. She was my girlfriend at the time, and we were both in just fantastic shape, and we were like, rah! And then we get to know each other, and like
Do that
all
again. How were you?
rah! And so we're both like in this phenomenal shape, the two of us. But then we meet each other, and it's like all I wanted to do was hang out with her. And all she wanted to do was hang out with me. And then like when we would hang out together, we'd sit
You
on the
eat potato
couch and
chips.
we'd watch movies, and we'd like, I would let her fall asleep on me, and that was what we did.
Oh,
And
because
it's
you were using that you had been reading enough books, you knew how to use the tone, and then
yeah, yeah,
you
exactly.
knew the words. You're like, you
Yeah.
just want to cuddle, don't you?
Mhm. And that's what
I
we
know
did.
that from the books.
Yeah, we did some cuddling. And well, so when I met her, I had it's funny, I have to reach out to Tantor, and my wife kept trying to remind me. Uh, when I met her, my bio on Tantor said, Troy Duran has blah 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 blah, and he has narrated over 20 books.
Mhm.
And now I'm
Now
like
you're at like
I'm
120.
I'm 220. So
Wow.
I've got all these books, but I mean
I
I've
want you to
been.
do another one of mine. I have a character that I think you would do really well.
Oh, do you?
Mhm.
I will do it. I will do
Okay.
it.
I'll talk to
Um,
Tantra about it.
okay, that sounds great. I would love that. I would also like to be in one of your books if you want to write a character, and like if he dies really horribly, that's a
Okay,
bonus.
you have to be careful about that. I will tell you, a friend of mine
Yeah.
that said that to me, right?
Mhm.
So in the book Cufflinks, I put him in there,
Hmm.
and he he died of sepsis. And
Oh, that's
so
another
I
thing about your books. I mean, you find some really ingenuitive ways
kill
to kill your
people.
characters off. Yeah. Yeah.
He dies of sepsis. And so we're there with like his flatulence, and it smells like
Oh no.
sulfur. And it's like, it is
Oh
the
no.
most disgusting, horrible,
Oh,
painful,
that's funny.
long lived,
It's terrible.
miserable,
Yeah.
awful death. And finally, and so I was like, hey, I wrote your book. You died.
Oh, that's
And
so
it was
funny.
glorious and smelly.
Careful what you
And
wish
he was
for.
like thrilled.
Yeah, that's great. No,
Okay,
I think it's
if I can figure out a really
all right.
devastatingly evil way to kill you off, I
Yeah,
will.
if it comes out, it would be well. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to force it on you or anything like that. But
Yeah.
if it does occur to you, it.
Well, I was just writing about in this new book. There's a guy in Russia. His name is the Sausage King. Have you heard
Oh
about him?
no, I have. Yes, I have.
And
The
he just
cannibal.
died.
He just died.
Do you know how the Sausage King of Russia died?
Oh, do I know how he died? No, I don't. All I knew was that he ground up people and sold them. Right? Is
Oh,
it the
with
same
that
guy?
I don't know. I know this is the guy. He's an oligarch in Russia, and his
Oh
name is
yeah,
the
that's a different
his
guy.
name is
Okay.
the Sausage King.
Mhm.
Someone broke into his house. He was in the hot tub with some woman. He broke into the house. This is just like recently. So it
Hmm.
goes in my book because I loved it. And
Yeah.
they had a crossbow and they're like, give me some money. And
Oh
he's like,
no.
no, because if someone broke into my house and they had a gun, all right, maybe, whatever, take what you want. That's fine. But
Yeah.
someone breaks into my house and they got a crossbow. I'm like, you're nuts. You're nuts. That's
Oh
not even,
man.
I'm not even taking you
So
seriously.
they
And he
shot him
said,
with a crossbow.
he shot him in the hot tub with a crossbow.
Oh
So
no.
he was like a sausage in the hot tub because
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, because he died and then he just
in
kind
the,
of blew up.
he's in, he was in the thing.
Oh,
Yeah, so he was
terrible.
left in the hot tub. He was left over time in a hot tub with an arrow through his chest, which is just, I was just like, I can't even
Oh, that's
imagine how
terrible.
horrible that death was. So we were talking about horrible
Yeah.
deaths and kids.
Yeah, that's
Sausaging in
terrible.
the hot tub.
Those are, yeah, terrible deaths
I'm
are.
here for your tidbits of stupidity.
Yeah, I have morbid, I have to admit, I have this morbid curiosity or this, this fascination about these terrible deaths. I remember it, like we were talking about Ken Follett, about 3 days ago when we started this Facebook Live. But, but, I, in one of those books in Ken Follett, he described the process of flaying a human being alive.
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
Oh, it's
No.
just horrible.
No.
That's,
Oh, my
I mean, when you think about the horrible ways that people invented to kill each other back then, I mean, it's
I am
terrible.
so nauseated right now. Yes, they did horrible, just really
Yeah.
amazingly disgusting. Like who? What kind of brain would come up with some of that stuff? See, I thought you were going to talk about Agatha Christie. She described
Hmm.
death by cyanide. I think. Oh, I might be stretching there.
Oh.
She described a poison death. I believe it was
Mhm.
cyanide so precisely that when somebody died of that, um, they they knew it because they had read Agatha Christie.
Wow. Interesting.
Because who sees the cyanide death? It just doesn't happen, right?
Mhm.
So
Authors are really a real special breed of people. I mean, so many things. It's really fascinating to talk to authors. Um, because I mean, it's interesting to speak with you because you have this practical experience of the things that you write about. But I know a lot of other authors who did. There's a guy named Joseph Malik
mhm.
who was a special forces guy and ended up getting blown up, and so he had to find a new career, and he decided to start writing.
Oh,
And
nice.
so he was one of the he was like you. I mean, you have all these varied interests. Well, he was the same thing. His fascination was swordplay, and so he learned everything there was about swords and sword fighting and different fighting techniques, through the ages,
Mhm.
and different martial arts disciplines and things like that. And so it
Very
was
cool.
interesting to talk to him just because he had this
I want to
practical
talk to
knowledge.
him. Let's get him on here.
I
Can you
think that
call
you
him
would.
up?
You know what? I think that you would love a conversation with him. Maybe that would be a good idea for the future. It would be really cool to kind of pair up some people. Like,
Yes.
I would love to be a matchmaker for you and Joseph Malik to talk about stuff like that. I mean, I would just
Do that for
basically I would
us.
say, Fiona, this is Joseph. Joseph, Fiona. You guys go
Let's
ahead
talk
and
about
talk. And I would just sit,
swords.
yeah, I just sit back and I'd watch you guys just because I think that it would be pretty fascinating because you both have a fascination with history, fascination with tactical stuff, and I mean, he spent his career was in the military, and
Which
he
is
spent time,
amazing.
traveling the world, doing dangerous stuff.
Doing dangerous, scary stuff that can
Mhm.
only write about. Yeah, good for him that he can do that. Yeah, I trained
Yeah,
in swords, and I'll tell you, it's if he can do that, that's pretty good. Not.
it's
I'm not good. I'm not
gonna
good
be
at it.
difficult.
It takes eye-hand coordination.
Yeah.
It takes. It's a chess game, and you really have to figure out when someone's raising their right elbow that that's
Mhm.
actually going to come at you from some other direction.
Yeah, I think there's a certain talent to that, right? When you're I was it's funny that you mentioned this. I was talking to my wife about this
But
just
you need to get her on here too. Hey,
I know. Yeah, I think that yeah, she kind of rolls her eyes at me. But
aw,
she so we were talking about fighting. Like she when I was a kid, I got a bunch of fights when I was in high school and I was like into kung
sorry about this.
fu.
I'm trying to adjust because my
Oh yeah.
foot fell asleep.
Oh, okay.
Sitting on the
You know,
ground.
that's probably a sign that the Facebook Live has gone on for a period of time. But so anyway, I had mentioned to her that we were talking about fighting, and I said, well, it is kind of a dance.
It is
Fighting is a dance, and you have to adjust to
partner.
your fighting
Mhm.
partner, right? And it could be like you guys are trying to beat the hell out of each other, but I mean, you have to adjust to his pace, his his aggressiveness, because if you can't adjust to that and move with it, then you get your ass kicked.
Great.
If he drives the tempo of the fight and you can't
You have
respond,
to drive the tempo.
yeah, or you have to
That's the
respond
key.
to the tempo, right?
You
I mean,
drive the tempo.
yeah, if
No,
somebody
but
is,
someone has to. And right, if they're
yeah,
if you have to bring the amount of aggression that comes at you,
mhm,
and but it's nice when they back off a little bit and you can rest.
mhm,
Just like
yeah,
catch my
and
breath.
I think that's that was the cool thing about but Bruce Lee, he was the one who really, he's the first one
Machine.
who really said that your opponent is your partner,
Mhm,
and there's like a whole different mindset that he brought to fighting and
mhm.
uh, and using your opponent's momentum against them. And
You do.
it's all pretty fascinating. And I think that people who study that they recognize the art in that in that violent sport. So sword play, that's a whole different thing for me. I've got no experience with that, but
Yeah, no, time and practice, and just yeah, it's you have to be committed to it to be successful at it, and
yeah, yeah.
and that when you commit to that, then you have to not commit to something else. So you have to pick and choose your
Yeah.
pick and
Yeah,
choose your battle.
it's your choices, right? I mean, you have to choose what your priorities are
Mhm.
and what you're gonna do with your time. Fiona, I have had such a great time talking to you, and I really appreciate all of your time. I think we've been on for okay, so about an hour and
But it
20
feels
minutes.
so long. Thanks,
No,
appreciate
no.
you.
Well, I mean, it really does seem like we just started
No,
talking
did we
and
come on
then
at 7:30? No, 8:30 my time. 7:30 yours.
7:30,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
yes, yeah.
For
We've been on.
strangers, not bad.
I know. It really was just fascinating to talk. I mean, I could talk to you, I don't know. Yeah, there's some people you can just talk to about everything and nothing. So so I enjoy that. I used to talk to my dad like that every Sunday morning. We would get together and talk for an hour and a half and kind of solve the problems of the world. And
Was he nearby, or were you doing this on the phone?
it was always on the phone. Yeah.
Mhm.
When I lived in St. Louis, he lived in Albuquerque.
Is
And the
that you?
funny
Are you from St. Louis?
I live in St. Louis now. I moved here in 2000, but
There
I
is
was
one word. So I've not been able to pick out an accent in all of your books except one word.
really, I want to hear it.
Yella
Yella.
for
Holy cow!
yellow. You said
I said Yella.
yella. And I was like,
Wow.
ah,
Huh.
wonder where he's from.
Interesting. I wonder
I
where
thought
that came from.
Oklahoma.
That's really interesting. No, so I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Okay.
and I don't think that I ever had an accent. Although I had a girlfriend who was from Chicago, and she used to make fun of me for the way I would say things like dollar. She would say dollar, and I'd say dollar, and
Wait,
I
this
said
sounds like
you
dollar.
say dollar, and she would say dollar. You know, she would like just drop it off. Dollar.
Dollar.
But yeah, I didn't ever really recognize that I had an accent. But yeah, so my dad was
Yellow.
he lived in New Mexico, but then decided one day at the young age of I don't know, he must have been about 70 at the time. He met a girl in the Philippines, and
And by girl, you don't really mean girl, you mean a
no,
woman.
she was a bit older than me, but I mean, but
So certainly he wasn't going to the Philippines for a 12-year-old, right? No.
right, yeah, no, 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 yeah, that's a whole different story. This is a feel good story. Um,
Okay.
this is not a cautionary story.
Thank you.
Um, but
Because I was bracing.
uh, hey son, I met this girl, and when I mean girl, no, she was she was older, and but so knowing my dad, we had talked every Sunday. He would not come out and visit me. He had been on an airplane twice in his life,
Mhm.
and both of those times was to come and visit me. Once in Phoenix and once in St. Louis. And he didn't even want to drive out to see me. He used to be a truck driver when he was younger, but he said, "Yeah, driving just messes with my ears, and so I don't want to do it." So my dad was an old curmudgeon, and then one
I
day,
love that.
oh yeah,
Curmudgeons are great.
he was, but yeah, one day I'm talking to him, and he's kind of acting funny, like he's not really. I could kind of tell like he's got something on his mind, but he doesn't really want to. Yeah, he hasn't said anything. And finally, I said, "So what's on your mind, Dad?" And he goes, "Well, son, I met somebody." And I said, "Oh, that's great. I'm really excited about that." And I said, I was wondering if you were gonna, if you hadn't dated." And he said, "Yeah, well, so she lives in the Philippines." I'm like, "What?" And the big problem was that he had met this girl 6 months ago, and at the point in time when he finally decided that he was going to tell me about it, he had decided he was going to go out to live in the Philippines with her. And I'm saying, Dad, there are a lot of stories about how
There
like
are a lot of
guys
stories.
go to Philippines and they
And
are robbed and killed, right?
mhm.
And but she turned
or
out to be,
or it's a scam and they take the money and they
yeah,
right.
yeah, or it's a terrible thing. But I mean, so this woman turned out to be like the most wonderful woman ever,
Mm,
and it
mm,
really worked out really well.
mm.
The last
Have you been out to see him? Have you gone to the Philippines?
well, so he passed away, and this was a while back. He had spent about a year and a half with her, and then he had to come back to the States to replace his pacemaker.
Hmm.
And because he didn't trust the doctors in Philippines, he said, "Oh, the
Right.
hospitals out here are dirty. I want to come back to
And the
to the
battery had
States."
run low.
Yeah, his battery was running down. So he came back and replaced his pacemaker and stayed with me for about 3 months. And ironically, the pacemaker, the incision was infected
Mm.
because I mean, hospitals are just,
Yeah.
you know, they're
They're full of germs.
breeding grounds, yeah. And so they replaced his new pacemaker and had him on an IV drip with antibiotics for, I don't know, probably about 30 days straight.
Mm.
He was really fighting an infection. We thought that it went away. He went back to the Philippines, and that's where he died because the infection came back, and
Mm.
he didn't take care of it in time. But
I'm sorry.
you know,
I'm
oh,
sorry
thank
for
you. I
that.
appreciate it. I was just so lucky that I got to spend that period of
Time.
time with him. I
Yeah.
mean, I got that 3 months, 4 months with him, and it would have been really terrible if I hadn't been able to spend that time with him.
Yeah. Yeah. What a
Uh,
gift. That was
yeah,
wonderful.
but he was happy. I think that's the thing. Like his wife was, she was so good to him, and he was a
Mhm.
cranky old fart. So she she had she had
God
the
bless those
patience of
angels.
Job. Yeah, she was very patient with him, and I was grateful for it. She was like the sweetest woman I ever met, and so
Have you
all of
kept in touch, or do you in touch with her at
yeah,
all?
yeah, we're still friends on Facebook, and
How's the Philippines doing with COVID?
I don't know. She lives in Canada now. She's remarried, and she has.
Where
I think she.
I'm Canadian. So where
Gosh, I guess she's. I think she lives. She doesn't live in Vancouver. She lives near Vancouver.
out
Although,
west?
yeah, I'm not sure exactly where, near there,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
but that's where she moved. And
Nice.
it's kind of funny. I mean, there are a lot of expats from Canada and the United States in the Philippines,
Mhm.
and so I guess that's where she met him, and they ended up moving back to back to Canada. But yeah, so I don't know how they're doing in the Philippines with COVID.
Because she's not there and it doesn't touch you, right? Yes, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
I
yeah, doing really
I'm
well. So, they were. Things are getting
so
sort of heating up everywhere. So anyway,
yeah, but it's but anyway, that's my story. I don't even remember why we got into that that story about New Mexico and the Philippines and
yellow.
my dad and
Well,
Yella,
yellow,
but
just yellow.
yeah. So well, I think that's about all I have to say. I think we've pretty much solved all the problems of the world.
Everything. I think we can all live in peace and harmony now.
Yeah,
I
we can,
truly.
we can talk about COVID next time if you want to, and figure out the protocols. I mean, I have a lot of questions about that,
Yeah,
but
I'm here for you.
yeah, it
My
really
daughter
was
is
a
an ER nurse with she focuses on COVID patients and I
interesting.
have lots of kids, so I'm just going to say when I say my daughter, just know that there's a passel of them. So one of my
You do
daughters
really.
is, and she it's pretty horrific, and you don't
Mhm,
want this. And please, everybody, be safe. Please, everybody, wear your mask, whether you believe in them or not. Just do it for the
mhm.
magic of it,
Even if
and
you don't to be polite in society.
to be polite and just to know that it's
Hmm.
not helping you, it's helping someone else. And so it's a gift. You're
Hmm.
doing something that's a gift for someone else. And
Okay.
it's human. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's not that difficult to wear a mask, I guess.
I don't like them, but I
Hmm.
wear glasses. So I know I always wear one, but I have
Oh yeah,
found
they probably fog up your glasses, don't they?
all the time. So here is my passing tip that if
Hmm.
you put a band aid over the top of it, you're going to be okay.
Oh, okay. Yes, it'll force the. Wow,
Force
that's a life
the
hack. Yeah,
air. Didn't know
you
you
need to write
signed up
that
for that.
down. That's nice. I learned something new. Actually, I learned a few new things with you.
Oh, yeah?
And okay, I'm going to keep you for just like 2 more minutes.
Okay.
All I want to know, and if it's 30 seconds, that's fine. I just want to know, how did you get out of that situation where you were kidnapped by the cabbie in Egypt?
Mhm. So
That's
his thing, what he was telling me was that, so there were three of us in the cab,
hmm
and we were on that trip that I was telling you about with the professors.
hmm
And my friends were freaking out. And he was telling me that what we were going to do was what he did was he drove us to this part of town where there were men around the car. This was pre phones, right?
hmm
There were men around the car and they're looking in and they see us and they're banging on the windows. And you know that if you get out or if they get in, uh,
hmm
you're just going to be
Yeah, you got
torn
problems.
apart. I mean, it was
Mhm.
very obvious. I'm just, um, it's very obvious that this was, we needed the taxi driver to be on our side to keep the door shut.
Mhm.
Um, and we needed him to not do what he was doing, which was he was selling us. And yeah, to the white slave trade. And we were all blondes and unusual looking for the area. And so eventually, I was able to convince him that we were meeting up. We needed to get to my father.
Mm,
So the guy who put us in the cab and told the cabbie where to go, which was to the pyramids, I told him that that was my father and that he
mhm,
was a very prestigious man and that he was also very wealthy.
mm,
And that while in America, that women, the girls, the daughters were of equal importance to the boys,
mm.
and that they and that my father would pay whatever he could sell me for in the slave trade, that my father would pay
My
that
father would pay. Hmm.
and then some. He just needed to get me back to my father so that I could tell him, and my father would just give him all the cash he needed. And
Hmm.
through lots of discussions, we came to the conclusion that that's what we would do. So
Wow.
we went and he got, so we eventually got to the place where the man was, where the professor was at that time.
Mhm.
And, and I'm, you know, telling him what's happening because he's going to
Mhm.
hold us in the cab. And the guy comes over and he's got a cane. He's an old guy. And he
Hmm.
just started beating the shit out of this taxi driver,
Wow.
um, and got us out of the cab. But
Mhm.
yeah, so it was a period of time where I was
What a terrible experience.
with
That had to
something.
be so terrifying for you.
I'm sweating right now telling you the story. It was
Yeah.
very, very frightening. And
Mhm.
it was more so than like I've had weapons in my face prior to that. I
Mhm.
had been jumped a couple of times in my life, and prior to that, and a couple since then. Just
Yeah.
always in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I've had weapons in my face, and I handled it better than that visceral, the
Mhm.
anger, and it was anger really that
Mhm.
it wasn't desire, it was anger. Like they were going to
Mhm.
be punitive in whatever happened, and they were
Mhm.
surrounded the car and banging and oh, it was something.
That's a terrible situation. Did it change your attitude toward traveling and you know where you would venture from that point forward?
So up when I travel in countries which are predominantly male centered,
Mhm.
um, I usually traveled with walk around with a guy next to me, right?
Mhm.
And would call him my husband,
Mhm.
um, and the guys who I was traveling with they understood what that was about, and they were
Mhm.
very cool with it, and I really appreciated them. This happened to be a day when we got separated from any males,
Mhm.
and so when I'm in a country where women are not seen as having equal value,
Mhm.
I'm much more careful. And it was interesting because my son and my daughter, and this is something I'm just going to say because a lot of men can't understand this, and um, because you've never been like, I have a light on outside of my house, and my husband turned it off. And I was like, no,
Mhm.
we never turn that light off because we have these bushes I need to be able to see. And he
Mhm.
goes, well, it'll come on and it'll be like 30 seconds. I'm like, no, you
Mhm.
don't understand because you've never been picked up off of your feet and taken where you don't want to go.
Mhm.
That's never happened to you. So you don't know what that feels like. And so just understand, I need my light on. But my daughter was traveling with my son. They were going over to backpack in Europe.
Mhm.
And my son was saying to her, he's younger by 5 years, and so she's the older sister. She should be fine, and
Mhm.
she's a second-degree black belt, and she's a weightlifter, and she's very
Mhm.
physically tough girl. He said, "Well, I'll go here one day, and I'll meet up with you." And she's like, "There is no way in
Mhm.
hell that's happening. You will
Mhm.
be by my side. You will never leave my side." And she
Mhm.
never had the experiences I had, but she has
Mhm.
the world understanding, being
Yeah.
out in the world. She knows that if that if my son was next to her, she'd be okay. If
Mhm.
my son wasn't next to her, she became vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's just unfortunately and very sadly something
Mhm.
women have to take into consideration, whether they choose to do something about it or not is an individual choice. But
Mhm.
I always choose to travel. I don't travel as an individual. I travel as a
Mhm.
group.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's important to be aware of your surroundings and your situation and understand that it's not about fairness or what it should be like. It's just a matter of taking care of yourself.
And being aware that there are different cultures, and they have different ways of doing things, and you are visiting their culture, so you
Mhm.
can't assume that they're going to ascribe to who I am
Mhm.
here in this culture. I'm transplanting into theirs, and I need to shift so that I'm okay in their culture rather than assuming that they'll shift to make
Yeah.
me okay in their culture, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're swimming in their pond, and so you need to adapt to
Not have chum
where
on
you're
me,
at.
right? If I'm in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're exposed.
Right.
So, Fiona, what a great time I had, and I really appreciate all this time that we had. I planned on only taking up about 30 minutes of your time, believe it or not.
You don't
And
know me. You see, I'm a novelist, and I don't.
okay,
So
yeah,
it's always an unfolding story. It was lovely to speak with
yeah.
you. I'm so glad
No,
we
I
did.
really, yeah, I really did have a great time. And yeah, so I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to post the links to the books in our chat. I have to admit that I've seen that I turned to the chats as I was looking at the comments, and we have a million comments in here. That's
Oh.
and I'm sorry to everybody who's commented who were expecting that I was going to answer these comments, but I just got into this conversation and I was just kind of lost for all that period of time. So I promise I will get back to you either tonight or tomorrow and like respond to the comments. Um, but
Tag me if you need me to say something, like if someone
okay,
feels.
I will do it.
But
Yeah, Fiona, thank you very much for all your time and yeah, again, so getting back to the original subject of the live, Cold Red is the latest book, and the book right before that is called In Too
open.
Deep.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right. That you did. In Too Deep. Yeah,
yeah.
that's Strike Force, and they're both available on Amazon, where you can find them, from Tantor on
Mhm.
Audible, and all of those places. So look it up.
Yeah. So real quickly, if you type in Fiona Quinn, is it going to be easy enough to find your Facebook page, or is there like a Fiona Quinn author or author Fiona Quinn?
FionaQuinnBooks.com. Mm-hmm.
Okay, FionaQuinnBooks.com.
FionaQuinnBooks.com.
Yeah, that'll be a good place to start, just because these are two books in a series of a
In a
whole
world.
bunch, especially in a world of audiobooks. Yes, I'll do your trailers from now on.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
need someone to do that. Yeah, and you can look at me on Audible, and you can find where Troy has done both, and grab them,
Mhm.
and then tell him exactly what you think about his pronunciation of the color yellow.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. You know what? So my wife, first audiobook that my wife listened to of mine when we first started dating, um, I mispronounced gondola.
What did you
I
say?
I
It's a
said gondola, and I don't know why I did that, but yeah, gondola. And I don't know. I mean,
very
and I
dramatic.
will do that. I'll mispronounce a word. I mean, now it's to the point like I have proofers and like I can go back.
There are some, yeah, not you, but other people who have done them. There are some that are, but
I don't. Yeah.
okay. No one else will hear it.
Mhm.
It's only heard by me because I spent so many hours with that one sentence. That
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, I don't know what I don't know. Like, I didn't know that it wasn't gondola. I also didn't know I was like 49, 50 years old when I learned that it's not thesaurus, but it's thesaurus.
what did you
Uh,
call it? A thesaurus?
yeah. I mean, it made sense to me. I mean, thesaurus, it's thesaurus. It's thesaurus.
I am so
Apparently
endeared.
not.
Oh my God, I'm so endeared. That is so cute.
So no, I mean, I don't know, what the what
Thesaurus.
logic it is in my brain, but yeah, all my life it was thesaurus. So
And nobody corrected you in your
not one,
entire life. Your teachers.
no, not one person until let me tell you, the one person who did correct it was my wife's daughter, who, like every story you've heard about a new guy coming into a girl's mom's life is like, the enemy. It's like it seemed like anything that I could possibly do wrong, I would do it in front of her. It was just like
Was she
that's
like
just the way
13?
she was 14.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. You didn't even
Yep.
need to. I, I could tell just from the
Yeah.
way the story was going that
Yeah.
that was right around the age of
Yeah. Just
misery.
breathing. That's all I had to do was breathe. And that was, that was a difficult thing for her to deal with. But yeah, so when I said thesaurus in front of her, that was like, okay, well, that's it. It's, from that was a good like 2 years fodder for her.
As well it
for
should
me.
be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I needed to keep on my toes.
You know,
All
we
right.
all have our roles in life. It takes
Mhm.
balance. We're here genetically for a reason.
Yeah,
And we
exactly.
have our 13-year-olds who serve to quash
Mhm.
our egos so
Yeah, keep
that
us
we can
yeah,
build them
keep us
back
humble. Yeah,
stronger and
and
better.
she does that to me. She definitely keeps me humble. So, well, thank you, Fiona, for all your time. I really appreciate it. And to everybody who's been commenting, I promise I will respond to the comments, and I will tag Fiona on these. And I hope you do get a chance to check out these books. I think they were they were a blast to read, and so I think I hope you'll enjoy listening to them as well. All right. All right, Fiona. Well, thank you very much for your time. Please tell your husband and the kids that are in the house that I said thank you for your time as well.
My pleasure.
All right, take care.